Welcome to the next edition of the Holland Office Museum's Artifact Video Series. My name is Ryan Duffy. I'm the director of the museum. In this week's topic, we're going to discuss one of the most well-known landmarks, one that dominated Main Street throughout the 19th and into the 20th century, and became known as one of its most well-known hotels, the Hotel Richmond. Now, the history of the Hotel Richmond goes back all the way to 1823, when it was built by a man named Horatio Gibbs. However, it was not known as the Hotel Richmond at that point. In fact, what became the Hotel Richmond actually went by many names throughout its history, but the first one it was known as was the Eagle Tavern. Now, the Eagle Tavern operated until 1834, when it burnt down on May 30th. However, it was rebuilt on Christmas Day, 1835, and reopened up back to the public. And it would go under that name until 1869. And it was actually at the Eagle Tavern that Charles Rand made his statement in order to be the first volunteer of the Civil War. They were Albert Collins, Andrew Andrews, and James White. And they looked to transform the hotel into a more prominent structure in Batavia and become the classiest hotel in the growing community. They wanted to call it the Hotel Richmond. The local residents fought the naming of the hotel to be called the Hotel Richmond at the time, as it was seen inappropriate due to the recent passing of Dean Richmond. So they decided to go with the St. James Hotel. Remained in that partnership until 1884, when Mr. Collins bought out his partners and operated it, was the sole operator. And he began a long period of remodeling that meant to improve the hotel and make it more appealing to visitors to Batavia and travelers between Buffalo and Rochester. Some of the remodeling projects that Collins undertook was he added a fourth story to the building, as it had only been 3 stories up until that point, and he created a ground floor shopping arcade, which was meant to draw in more visitors but also create some more revenue from the shops there, as well as create a grand ballroom. Now, these remodeling efforts grew the hotel's popularity, and eventually in the 1880s he leased it out to a gentleman named Orrin Parker. However, in 1886 the building burned down for a second time. Then a third hotel was built on the structure in 1889, and it was actually built by a company under the umbrella of the Richmond estate, so that's where the name Hotel Richmond actually came from, that stuck. Now, the stock company that owned the hotel actually defaulted on their payments, and it went back to the Richmond estate, who then put a Mr. Watson in charge, and he operated the hotel basically through the rest of its existence, starting in 1905. George Watson continued to make further improvements, including a billiard room. He added on to the dining facilities, created a bakery and larger kitchen, hired well-known chefs, and added livery stables in the back, as there really weren't any stables close by at the time. He also put out wider advertising for the hotel, including that there would be steam in every room, hot water, private baths. All this would be very attractive to a weary traveler at the beginning of the 20th century, as a lot of hotels at that point did not have some of these amenities. On top of that, there was electric throughout the building. There was a coffee shop, a very nice opulent lobby with leather chairs. Watson did all the stops for his visitors in order to bring people to the Hotel Richmond and Batavia at large. And as you look here, you can see some of the souvenirs from the Hotel Richmond as time went on. As we progressed through the 20th century, the hotel grew in importance and became a fixture of the Batavia social scene. In the 1930s, Mr. Watson gave a long lease to Russell and Ann Wharton, who had previously owned a hotel in Geneva, and they created a gathering place at the hotel where they held dinner dances and meetings of many of the local organizations, including ones from St. Jerome Hospital and Batavia Hospital. And they would hold all sorts of events that most places in town could not cater or have the space for, from simple luncheon parties all the way to a formal banquet which they held on many occasions. However, in 1940, Mr. Watson grew dissatisfied with the Mortons and let them go, and he hired Mr. Louis Calafettis for a brief period, but then in 1950 he took it back over and ran it himself. However, by that time the hotel had seen better days and was essentially falling apart and could not keep up with many of the local city codes, particularly the fire codes, and it was eventually led to legal action where a local judge required that no more visitors stay at the Hotel Richmond. And this occurred by the late 1950s. And in 1961, the building was sold to the Ryan DeWitt Corporation, who then tore it down at the end of the year. So the Hotel Richmond's history lasted well over 100 years and saw the expanse of actually 3 separate hotels on the same plot of Batavia Main Street, and was the home to many famous people staying there, as well as many events, including what became known as Land Office Day in October 1894, when the Land Office became a museum. All of the dignitaries in town actually met at the Hotel Richmond to have a nice big luncheon, and that's where they stayed. So if there was a major happening in Batavia, you could find probably the people at the Hotel Richmond between really the 1880s and the 1960s, but even going back farther than that. Now, some of the items that you saw previously are some of the souvenirs and other items connected to the hotel. But one other item I'd like to show you is a little bit larger and was a fixture on the outside of the hotel. What we have here is actually one of the old iron hitching posts that actually stood outside the Hotel Richmond. So this is where, back before our automobiles, when most of the visitors and travelers that came through Batavia were still riding in horseback or carriages, this would be something that they could hitch their horses up to, and this was your old-time parking spot and parking meter, you could say. Well, I hope you enjoyed this next edition of the Artifact video series. In case you've missed any previously, they are all up on our YouTube channel, Holland Land Office Museum, but they're also up on our other social media platforms, so feel free to check those out. And we'll continue to do these about one every week, so feel free to join us in the future. And if any of these pique your interest, please come on by the museum and check them out for yourself.